Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, a show that celebrates all things nerdy. You'll get an insider's look into the world of comic books, graphic novels, TV and film, gaming and pop culture, as well as the technologies that drive all of it. Now, are you ready to get nerdy? Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, the show about all things nerdy. We discuss nerd news, movies, TV shows, games, comics, and so much more. I'm Brian.
I'm Jeremy.
Hey guys. I'm Chad.
Embrace yourselves, folks, because we're about to get nerdy. All right, so last week, we started talking about a great topic that Chad brought up. Yes, it is true. Chad can actually do good things occasionally.
Every once in a while, yeah.
Every now and then, it is a rare blue moon moment, but it did happen. And we actually got in. That'd be wonderful. We got into the conversation so much that we only talked about one of the 5 questions. So we're going to try to get through at least a couple more tonight. Yeah. Shout out to Damien. He is not able to make the show tonight for personal reasons, but wish him well, and he'll be back with us next week. And before we go any further, of course, we have to get your hands ready, Chad.
My hands are ready.
You ready for this? All right.
Yes.
The wonderful, fantastic Rising Tide Broadcast Network is who we are partnered with, and we love them. Actually, they are great. There are so many great shows on here, guys. There are shows about comics. There are shows about cigars. There are shows about science stuff, and there's shows just to encourage you to be creative. And one of those shows will be tomorrow morning with Brian K. Morris, and never mind the furthermore. So tune in then, and then take a screenshot of this slide, and you will have the entire schedule at the ready. Now, without further ado, I have a fun icebreaker for all of us. And Chad, we're going to go with you first because I really want to hear. Yeah, I really want to hear this. Your most embarrassing creative moment.
Of course. Oh, I have to think about that one. That one's hard to. My most embarrassing creative moments.
Yeah, so like a time where you were at a Comic-Con or something, and someone like made a snide remark or showed you their underwear or something. I don't know. What do you got?
Well, I'm just in general socially awkward anyway, so
I know you are. That's why I really wanted to hear this answer.
I'm trying to think of a situation. I mean, I think of my immediate thought are like things that I struggle with that probably no one on the outside no one knows about. So like like if I see a celebrity, like I'll freeze, like I'll fanboy a little bit like internally, and I won't know what to do, and I'll feel like awkward. I can't think of a specific.
Do you have an example of that? Yeah, because I would love to hear your
embarrassment. Like there, like I remember, John, what's his name? John Schneider played on Smallville.
Yeah, he was Pa Kent on Smallville.
Yeah, I went to go get his autograph for my wife because she really loved that show. Yeah, and internally I just froze. I didn't know it's just kind of stood there like, hey, what's up, buddy?
Just hold the page.
Can sign.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly how I am. I'm totally like that. Or like I get like real weird. Like if there's a I know of a semi-famous. He's probably pretty famous, like creator that I met and got to know, and then every time I saw him, there was just this, and I've shared this before, there's just this weird, like, you're trying friends, but at the same time, there's that awkward, like, are you my friend because of who I am and who I know, or are you my friend just because you want to be friends? But then there's that other thing that, like, that's how getting seen and known is through relationships. So it's just this awkward, like, and so eventually I just kind of stopped going over and saying hello because I was like, this is so dumb. Like I put so much pressure on myself and, but there's not really been anything where I, like I stood up to to say hello, and my pants fell, weird like
That's
that.
unfortunate.
So, yeah, I know. It's mostly just me, just being weird,
It's mostly just my soul that's
It's
awkward.
just
That's
me.
it. That's mostly what it is.
It
Yeah,
is.
you are an
And so
awkward man. I've watched you at shows before, and I hate you for this because Chad's, for those who don't know, Chad is this amazing artist. Just ask him, he'll tell you. And
shut up.
maybe not with words. I mean, look at that artwork behind him on this wall of
Hey,
humility.
Hashtag always promoting. That's what
I
that's
mean,
all about.
I guess that's one way to say it. But
Shut up.
but Chad will like be at a table, head down, completely not looking at anybody walking up to the booth, just drawing away, and whew, all these people come up to his booth. They're like, "Oh, I want to buy this," and he makes a purchase, or he makes.
I
a
will
sale.
say, hey, I
he
will
just
say,
Makes me so mad.
He just like slides over a bucket.
Yeah,
Just
he's
like,
like,
boom.
here you go, just take the book.
No,
out here."
I will say in those situations, I try to be very intentional in like engaging with people because I know like I try to go up to tables where the person is like drawing and you just feel like, am I
Feel like they're
interrupting you?
interrupting,
Like, why are
yeah.
you here? Like, what
Yeah.
you got a booth, like, and you're just sitting there drawing. You don't want to talk to me. Like, why did you spend the money for the booth? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like
Yeah.
for me, when I'm at a table, I really do try to be intentional and talking to everyone. Especially if like a kid comes up, I try to ask them like if they draw or
What do
if
you
they like to
want?
draw. Yeah. Why are you here?
Small
I am
human,
trying
why
to
are you
draw
here?
Small human.
Get away from me.
Yeah. And I think like conferences are like really good for just making connection with fans and meeting new people that I don't know who you are. So like they're
Did
really
you just say
important.
conference? Are you writing a dissertation? What's
I
happening?
I said conference. I meant convention. Sorry.
Our comic
But,
book. No, from now on, that's what I'm calling it. The comic book conference.
Comic conferences.
Yes,
Yes.
the comic conferences.
Where you present your paper to
Gross.
scholars.
Ugh.
So no, I think like for example, like I would love to get an autograph from like Jim Lee, but I think if I got in line and actually got up to him, I would like I would be uncontrollable. Like it would be so awkward. So like
Chad would freak out and be like, sign my boob.
Exactly.
Please.
That's exactly what would happen.
Yeah.
And really, when I think about it beforehand, I just think beforehand, like I would want to tell him, like I would want to be like, man, the same thing he probably hears like 10,000 times. Like you are the reason why I got into comics. Like you have had such an influence on me. I've watched all your videos and all that kind of stuff. But he hears that like 100,000 times, and like, but to
you
each
gotta
person,
figure out a way
special
to make
them.
it interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what you
Yeah.
should do? Be like,
No,
hey,
I'm not
you
gonna do that.
inspired me to make this, and you hand him the silence.
No, see, I would not do that because I think you're not supposed to do that with him or with a lot of those guys because
Was he like Tony Stark in the Avengers? He
Yes,
doesn't
rules.
like to be handed things.
No, I'm just saying like if that was if that were an open book, like he would get like 1,000 books. Like everyone come up to him and say, "Here's my stuff."
Most people do that though. When they go meet like their favorite artist, they're like, "Here, take this, please."
Yeah, and they're probably just like, "Thank you."
Actually,
trash.
From the experiences that I've had, they do not. Like a lot of people that I have interacted with, which I haven't really gone up to a whole lot of like famous 1%ers, like Jim Lee or whatever. But like, I don't know. I mean, I just know like if it were me, I would never get tired of like seeing other people be inspired and create something. Like yeah, sure. The reason I don't go up to everybody and give them books is because they can't usually
you don't have enough books.
Right, they can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like yeah. And a lot of people like they don't have that kind of sway with a publisher necessarily, unless they were gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like if they came with an idea, the publisher would listen. But like, I mean, once I call it the Ninja Turtle moments. Like very rare times does something like that actually work out.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times when I give somebody my book, like I do it because I want them to know that I really appreciate what they did for me as a creator.
Yeah.
You know, like for me,
Yeah.
that's what it's about. Is it's like I just want to share this with you. I don't want you to buy it. I want to give this to you because your work
Yeah.
inspired me to do this.
Yeah, for sure. And when I first started going to conventions, I had that you were talking about, like, you just have this idealistic view in your mind, like, I'm going to give my book to so and so creator. They're going to look at it and they're going to be like, oh man, this is amazing. I will give it to this person. I
Mhm.
can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people that said, well, I know this editor and I'm going to talk to them about you, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
and never heard from them again. And it's like,
Right.
I've heard it. And it's weird to say because it sounds arrogant. Like, well, I've heard it 100 times. People say that, because not everyone gets that chance. But like, I've heard it so many times that people are like, "Oh yeah, this is really good, and I'm going to give it to so and so, and I know this person." It's like, no, you're not. I'm not
Yeah.
going to. But like that,
And,
you never know that millionth time it could be the one. But
and honestly, they might actually
that's
do
what I'm
that,
saying,
but
yeah,
the editor doesn't care.
the editor might be like,
Yeah.
I've already got like 100 other projects that we're going
Right.
for, So
Right.
See, but here's the thing. This is what I meant by make it interesting. Okay, so you pick that one guy in your head. That's the one person I'm going to shoot this shot, and I've only got one person, right? And you just save up your money. Okay, you put the comic down and $1,000. Just read this. Just read this. That's all I want.
Jeremy's like, make him an offer he can't refuse.
Yeah.
Bribe.
Is he going to say no?
Bribe your way to the top.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, depending
on
who it is,
I have to watch you read it.
Yeah. Depending on who it is, that might actually work.
Yeah, really. Exactly.
Oh gosh. Well, let's take a break really quick because we've got some comments.
What about Jeremy? You're not going to ask him
we're
about
coming back to him. Won't you chill out? Gosh.
Yeah, so far you've only been the person to answer.
I know. Goodness. Donna Carlene at 6:01, mind you, said, hello, guys. Hello, madam. How are you?
Hello,
Sarah is there. So is Carl, and so is Ted Davies. What's up, buddy?
Awesome.
How you doing? And the Brian K. Morris is here as well.
Awesome.
Donna and everybody they are all talking to themselves and each other as well. I know, man. Jody McPhee. What's up, man? Evening all, only here for a bit. Well, thank you for coming by. It's always good to see you. Donna agrees with me. And Carl said, explain your presence at my table now. That was Chad with children. And let's see. C. Michael Lanning says, I think if you were going to approach someone to give them your books, you have to make sure they're not swamped. And that is true. That's just being courteous. I've actually seen people like try to pitch a book to somebody and there's like a huge line behind them, and that's just not the time. That's not, you got to catch them when they're it's a little dead, and that's why you got to read the room. If you're trying to share with somebody a meaningful story or a meaningful a connection that they have with your book, wait until they have some time. Wait till there's just a couple people at their table. Wait for those people to leave. That's just being courteous. So absolutely agree with that. And Carl says, I have to watch you read it. Security. Jeremy doesn't care about security. Why don't you go ahead and share your experience about how you stalked a certain agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
S.H.I.E.L.D., yeah. That was actually going to be my creativity because so Brian and I were at Cincinnati Comic-Con. Was it like probably 2017, 2018, something like that?
I think it was 2019. It was the last time we were there, I believe.
Oh, this is nice and recent. Good.
Yeah.
Interesting.
This is very recent. Yeah.
So I was walking around with my camera, taking pictures of cosplayers and things like that, and I was actually
from the
sitting,
bushes.
Yeah. I was out in the lobby area, sitting on a bench, editing photos, and I happened to look up and saw Clark Gregg from, that's what his name is, right?
Yeah.
Phil Coulson from the Avengers movies and from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but I just got my camera out and started taking pictures of him like I was like paparazzi or something. And every time And I saw him like multiple times throughout the
Yeah.
rest of the convention, and every time I was just like as he was walking by, and he kept like looking at me like, what is your problem, weirdo? And so I ended up feeling really bad about it.
The best part is though, you have multiple pictures of him looking at you like you're a
Oh
crazy
yeah,
person.
yeah.
That's the
I
best
have
part.
evidence that
Yeah.
that he really was bent out of shape about it. And so I ended up paying, I think it was like $70 to go have him autograph something. And it was like, hey, I'm sorry, I was just messing around. He was like he kind of acted like he didn't even know what was going on. And I don't know if that was like some sort of like flex where he was trying to be like, I don't even know who you are.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you know, or he was just trying to like make up an excuse other than I hate you and you're why I don't do this stuff anymore. You know, like so yeah, it was awkward because I was just
Yeah.
standing in the autograph line and walked up and was like, what do I say now?
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
had this like in my head what I was gonna say, but as soon as you, like you were saying, you stand in front of the person, you're like, none of this makes any sense. I'm gonna have to talk to him for
Yeah.
like 10 minutes in order to develop the context that I need
Yeah.
for him to understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
bad.
Oh man.
That's
Mine
awesome.
is no, it was great. It was so great. And those photos are on Instagram, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. I'll have to look those up.
Check out the grams.
Right. So mine is it's not really awkward. I guess because I am so awkward as like a person, like in like a fun way, like I make things
Yes.
more awkward because it's fun for me. So I don't really feel like things are awkward. So I guess like the most awkwardly fun moment I ever had at a Comic-Con was one time I was at my table. John Barrowman was at the show. For everyone who doesn't know that, he is from Doctor Who. He is from Arrow. He's from a bunch of different shows. He was from Torchwood. Yeah, and he also he also sang "Springtime for Hitler" in the remake of The Producers. And he is hilarious. He is a lot of fun. I know there's been some controversy about him lately, but whatever. He was at that show and he was walking through Artist Alley, just kind of making a bit of a beeline, but also acknowledging people, because people, of course, were like as he passed by, and he passed by my table, and I just happened to look up because I heard the commotion. Yeah, I looked up, and our eyes met, and he just goes, and just kept walking, and I was like, yes.
That's awesome.
So that's the closest thing I got to like an awkward moment, because like it wasn't really awkward, but I don't know. I have fun with awkward things. So and I mean honestly, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say for you, Brian, I think you have to be even more careful of how you approach people because you're so tall and
oh yeah,
like, menacing.
Yeah,
like
I am
you
until I open my mouth.
People. Yeah.
Yeah. When I open my mouth, they're like, "Oh, he's just a teddy bear." But until
He's
I
so
have a
sweet.
smile or anything, I look like I'm gonna hurt you.
You got a purty mouth.
Get in there real deep, like. Oh man! So, what do you guys say we jump into part 2 of inspiration and creativity? So, Jeremy, why don't you start us off with this one? How do you feed your creativity, and what types of things help you come up with fresh ideas and expressions? I think this is actually a really good question for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I guess.
Yeah, it was great. So I kind of have an obsessive personality. I like the deep dives into things. Whenever I watch a movie, I think like I'll watch through one time and then I'll watch it with like IMDb assistance where I'm doing like all of these cross references and find out like every movie this person has been in, and if I liked this movie with this person, maybe I like this director, and what other good movies does this director have? And so
So you watch
those-
movies correctly. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well
but
done.
just like too much.
Like you walk out of
like,
your basement
it-
like 5
whatever
weeks
you have
later,
in your
like, oh my
head,
gosh,
like,
I've seen
double
every
it.
single thing Scorsese has ever done.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's close to that. Yeah. I've always got something playing while on my TV while I'm working. So I can really like burn through some content.
Yeah.
But yeah, my favorite thing is just doing like deep dives, because I think when you watch, especially with directors, I think directors and cinematographers, you get a better understanding of who that person is when you watch multiple in a row.
Yeah.
There are some exceptions to that, like Michael Bay. If you've seen one Michael Bay movie, you know the vibe of every other one.
Yes and no, because early Michael Bay hits differently than now Michael Bay.
Like,
because now
what movie?
like The Rock is really like, I think of The Rock versus Transformers. Like, I don't know that like you couldn't really tell that that's the same director. I don't think. Like, there's definitely similarities, obviously, but like I think he was a little more toned down in the beginning, kind of like Tim Burton, right? Like Tim
Well,
Burton. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think he may apply it differently, but I think he brings the same techniques. And what I mean by that is, and this is actually a good thing. Most of the time people hear Michael Bay and it's all like, let's just see how shiny this could be and this and that. But one of the things I think he does really well, and what he did in The Rock and also brought it to Transformers, is cameras are on the ground where cameras are supposed to be, and where people who have eyes who are witnessing the things that are happening, that's the vantage point. And what that does is it gives you this like incredible scope where you see it helps you understand how massive things are, right? When you're on the ground and you're looking up at a transformer, or I think about the car chase scene in The Rock, which is probably the biggest action point. There aren't any like drones hovering over. Like, most of the time it's a camera on a sidewalk or a camera in each of the cars. That's just about it. And it gives you that scope where, or that maybe not scope, but just this feeling of realism, like you're there, where just being in like a hot air balloon with no shake and just perfectly smooth, and you're watching a car just like zoom past, like you don't get that, you're not brought into the moment there. So but I love things like that, finding those nuances of directors or nuances of cinematographers, learning about like, for instance, Roger Deakins uses a lot of wide angle lenses, but gets close. A common practice is if you look at the Bourne trilogy, Paul Greengrass, all of their conversations are very far off. Even though they're having these conversations where people are sitting down and talking to each other, the camera is far off, and it's a really powerful lens, and it's also handheld. So it's just this, like, all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas with a guy like Roger Deakins, you're sitting there, you're like really close, so it's like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the conversation that you're having.
Yeah.
So my face is big on the screen, but it's not artificially big because you're using a zoom lens. Does that make sense?
I think you should go in closer, honestly.
I think you should do the whole show like that.
Yeah, just like that.
Just hold it like
every now and then. Oh gosh,
Yeah, like, but you start to read those things, and then you learn about, like, okay, well, what types of lenses do these people use, and what cameras? How did that influence how they create, and then that leads me to, if I want to try to do this myself, how
Mhm.
can I accomplish that with what I have? I've really gotten into researching lenses.
Mm.
I've even purchased several like old Russian lenses on eBay,
Yeah.
which is kind of hit or miss whether
Right. So
you
okay.
get
So
something of quality, but they're
what?
like
what
$50.
so what is that? Like, why is that a thing? Old Russian lenses. Like, just is it
Um,
a different
You don't know?
style? Shut up,
uh,
Chad.
Wrong with you?
so one, just being old, there's a difference in
Yeah.
the color representation and the sharpness or softness of the image.
Mhm.
Um, Russian lenses, they are a lot of them. There wasn't a whole lot of oversight over the process, and so you get these batches of lenses that have these abnormalities, which, 9 times out of 10 might be terrible. Like
Mm.
batch K of this line of lenses is garbage, but J does this weird thing that looks beautiful. Like one of the
Mm.
lenses that I have, the bokeh, or the like out of focus, like light circles. Like when you're at somebody and you got the subject back here, and it's light. Well, it's not a circle; it's an oval, and the ovals are like in a circular pattern. They don't all just go in one direction.
Mm.
They it so it if you're taking a picture of somebody and they have lights behind them, it like closes in on them. It almost frames
Mm.
them up within the frame of the shot, and can make some really cool effects. So that there's tons of things with Russian lenses, with older Japanese lenses, um, things like that. That I mean, it takes a long time to like research those things and figure out what line is like where do you find what you're looking for, things like that. So yeah.
Mhm. Very cool. Yeah, I know. Like, going back to just like kind of going down like a rabbit hole of like your favorite creators. I do the same thing. I mean, I know when The Dark Knight came out. Of course, Nolan hadn't done a whole lot at that time. But he had done a movie called Memento that up till that point I had never heard of.
Mm.
And it's kind of it for a long time. It was kind of like his under the radar movie. And then when The Dark Knight happened, everybody was like, "Oh
Like
my gosh!"
went
So
back
like,
and yeah,
right, they went back and watched it,
yeah,
and I did that then. So like up until and even like up to this point now, like I've now seen everything Nolan has done that's for public view. Um, except for Dunkirk. That's the only thing I haven't watched yet.
it's good.
I know I need to watch it. But yeah, like that's but I also do that with like special features too.
Hmm.
There are honestly some movies that I just like I bought them again because the special features updated.
Oh,
Like the movie
nice.
itself, yeah, like the movie itself didn't really like
Mm.
change it and change the resolution or anything. It was just like, no, it's the special edition, and it just has like all the extra behind the scenes stuff. And that's honestly like that's I did that. Like I watched more special features than I did movies, probably my entire, like years in high school and college. Like I
Yeah,
loved that because when it first came out, it was huge. I
yeah,
mean, we had to wait till like it came on TV or something if they ever did a special on like Entertainment Tonight or something like that. That was the
right.
only special features you got until DVDs started doing that.
Yeah.
And I think I've probably watched the special features to Hellboy 2 more than most movies I've seen multiple times. Just because watching Guillermo del Toro's creative process, it inspires me so much.
Yeah.
Just to see how his brain works, to hear him talk about the different monsters and different um, you know stories that kind of just circulated in that man's head. It's brilliant. So I totally understand where you're
And
coming
I
from
think
there.
it does something that's really great for the entire industry, and you get to see other people other than just the director and the main actors. You get to see, set designers that are like totally geeking out over this set that they built that you thought was an awesome set as well. And it kind of gives you a deeper connection to the movie, to the people, to the industry. And there's this like attachment, where, it's almost like a familial attachment, you'll go out and you'll see,
where is it?
You'll see every Nolan movie because you saw him geek out about something that you thought was cool too.
Right. I can't find it on my shelf right now. So
this is really unprofessional, Brian.
While you're looking for that, I have a question for you.
Oh no.
You're welcome. Hey Jeremy, just so you know, you probably have no control over this, but you have this weird clicking noise going on in your sound a little bit.
Oh yeah.
It's like a little
you do a little bit. Every time you talk, it's like so yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to do with it. Either way, sorry. Just
let's jump into the
Hey,
let's interrupt Chad and jump into the comments really quick. Carl Isman says Claudia Christian Babylon 5 was talking on stage about how her sister needed a massage and several of us volunteered. Then she told us that she was a minor. Yes, that would be an awkward moment. My goodness. Michael Lanning says The Rock doesn't even feel like a Bay movie. Less budget. I don't know what it is. I honestly for years did not know it was a Michael Bay movie. I think it was only after I watched like Transformers 2 did I actually realize The Rock was done by Michael Bay. Maybe it was the budget. Maybe the fact that he didn't have all the money to do all these crazy, solar flares and and weird, crazy orange and blue color schemes. It just, it kind of grounded him a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Rick Bradley, what's up, man? How you doing? He says, good morning, all. Good morning. Good evening, all. Carl Witzman says there is a look to old lenses. There is. Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
I can post some pictures that I took with the lens that I was talking about.
Do it. Post it on the Dingo's Facebook page.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Rick Bradley says Memento was definitely a cool concept. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. If you haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin it. If you haven't seen Memento, it was the first film that Christopher Nolan did that the first big release that he had. Go watch it this week sometime because it is worth the watch. It's really, really cool. And it's got Trinity in it from The Matrix. So Carl says, yes, Rick, it was really fresh as a concept. I have a cat clawing me.
Now I'm hearing that sound that you were saying in your voice, Brian.
Oh, really?
I wonder, it's some connection.
It might be StreamYard then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Pity. Carl says this chat is taking me back to my old film classes. Yeah. Welcome,
love it,
sir. Indeed. Rick Bradley says, send all the good thoughts to me at home. To my, oh no, the My Sharona Miley Cyrus has reared its head and got my son, and now I'm starting to feel a lot of symptoms. Oh no, dude. Definitely praying for you, bud. Keep us posted, all right? Feel better. Take care of that kiddo. And Jody says, however, does that play to your fandom? It's like your fandom sparks your creativity. It's rare that people do research for their creative process that is not a part of some form of their fandom. Me personally, there's definitely a lot of truth to that. But me personally, I like to expand out of my fandom. And like I'll just go like special features hunting on YouTube. Because a lot of the old special features or documentaries, I'm a sucker for documentaries anyway. So like any kind of documentary on a specific, thing that's not necessarily usually in my wheelhouse, I still love learning about it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Chad? Oh, so I was going to say in season 2 of this show, we were doing a horror episode and
Yeah.
I did a deep dive into horror movies because at the time, and I think it's still fairly true. There's a lot of like pandering uh, in horror movies where they just try to like raise the body count, the jump scares. You know, they try to do gore for gore's sake,
Yeah.
and that's just never really interested me. But between Brian and the other guy that we were talking to, Andrew Morris, you know, we were talking before the recording, and I was like, okay, well, I am gonna just do a deep dive, and
You
I
did.
told Andrew to send me a list, and he sent me a list of like, I mean, it was probably 30 horror movies that I
Yeah.
watched.
They were
in, like,
really good ones too.
I watched in like 3 days,
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, it was just like it was nuts. I
Was
sat there
that
with my
was
laptop.
The Exorcist on that list, or is that later?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Maybe that's why you
Yeah.
didn't really enjoy it as much, because it was in the middle of 30 different movies.
No, it was the first of 30.
Oh, well, dang it.
Yeah, that was the first one I watched.
And you were like, oh.
There's just so much walking and driving that doesn't need to be recorded. Like
You're so
just
impatient.
I know, yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't rent the movie about driving
It's
or
not the movie
how
about driving.
or how to
Her
walk
head
with
spins around and
flowers.
she throws up pea soup.
Yeah, so get to
That's
that
not
part.
driving.
That's what
That's
I'm saying.
awesome. So Chad, what about you?
Yeah. No, I think
Good grief.
I I would say yeah to your comments on the horror film. No, I
Mhm.
think I tend to not do deep dives in like sci-fi and comic book stuff because I feel like if you do it too much, it can influence you in a way that stifles your creativity a little bit. Like
Yeah.
where you start replicating the things that you're watching too much. And I prefer to like kind of look at stuff outside of whatever fandom it is. Like for me would be sci-fi and comic book stuff. I tend to look elsewhere for inspiration and that kind of thing because I feel like back in the 90s when I first got into comic books, I did a deep dive on Image, like all the Image comics. Like I was constantly like drawing from or reading from or looking at, not really reading, mostly just looking at the pictures. But
Yeah, you don't read, you just look at pictures.
yeah, exactly. And so it really did influence my drawing style, and to both good and bad. Like, you know, you're trying to find your own voice. Sometimes if you look too much at other stuff, you can lose your voice, I guess you could say, and start
Yeah,
looking
because then
at
you accidentally replicate them.
yeah, exactly.
Completely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I
think
know,
it's good
like,
in
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say I think it's good in moderation. It's good to see like what else is out there, what other people are doing, but you have to be careful about how it can influence who you are as a creator, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, and to like in all seriousness, there are actually like certain books, certain movies, certain comics that I will not even read a first time because it's so close to the content that I'm creating
Yeah.
that I don't want to I don't want to pull anything from it accidentally.
Yeah.
Like for a great example, when I was in high school, I read part of Paradise Lost early in high school.
Mm.
And then I also read a book by a guy named Frank Peretti called This Present Darkness.
Mm.
I will not read either one of those now because I'm doing memoirs, and both of them deal with angels and demons. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not even so much that like that's a topic I stay away from because I like those type of stories. I think they're a lot of
Yeah.
fun. I will watch Prophecy with Christopher Walken like all the time
Mhm.
because it's such a good movie. But like I feel like there are certain stories that like hit certain buttons on that topic that I am
Yeah.
also trying to hit, and I don't want to do it in the same way.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think that's the way that you make progress in a genre is that you know, there obviously there's nothing new under the sun in the sense that, you know,
Yeah.
like it's the same story, same, you know, ideas are being rehashed, but they're being rehashed in a new way. And I feel like if you're just like, for example, if you're into zombies or horror or something like that, like I feel like there's so much zombie stuff out there that if you just watch all the zombie stuff, you're just gonna recreate all that thing,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But if you, as a zombie creator, started watching, I don't know, sci-fi is the only thing that comes up in my mind. If you start watching sci-fi, then all of a sudden you are influenced by that genre and you start telling a zombie story in a very different way, which is what makes it's like, oh, no one's ever done a zombie story like that with a sci-fi
Mhm.
element or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So that's where I
Yeah.
think doing deep dive in other genres, other forms of creativity or expression, I think is really helpful, and it brings something new and fresh to what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
I can see that.
and arguably, and I could totally see somebody like saying, absolutely, this isn't true, and you're probably right. But in my mind, the coolest zombie movie is Batman Returns. Because Catwoman's totally a zombie in that movie. She's not your stereotypical zombie, but she dies and then comes back.
Then comes back, yeah.
So, like, that is
She
technically a
also
zombie.
wears a garbage bag.
Right. What? When did she wear a garbage bag? No.
Like when she's putting together her suit, I felt like it was a. I
No,
felt
she
like it
doesn't
was
wear
a
a
garbage
garbage
bag.
bag. No. She takes her old leather jacket and
I
somehow
don't
makes
believe
that
that.
into her entire costume to cover
Yeah,
her
the
entire
whole
body.
thing. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
love
mixed
that.
with garbage bags.
Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. It did that. I watched it last night. That part's not in it. So maybe it is mixed with garbage bags.
Whatever.
I don't know. But
Shut up
really,
about
like
my
last
opinion.
night, I'm watching the movie and I'm going, this could be a zombie movie. I mean, it totally could, technically.
Hmm.
Now, not like the Walking Dead zombies, but like she died, she came back.
Yeah.
Zombie movie. It's also a Christmas movie, Christmas zombie movie.
There you go.
There you go. So, but
Every
anyway,
episode.
so Chad, now
Yes.
going to you, sir, with question number 2. How do you feed your creativity, and what types of things help you come up with fresh ideas and expressions?
So my answer to the question is kind of related to talking about creative block as well, because I feel like that's the way out of creative block is by feeding your creativity constantly to try
Mhm.
and fight, you know, like those dead spaces that sometimes we fall into. So there's a couple different things I do. One main thing is I usually have like 6 or 7 projects going on at the same time. Now I don't give the same amount of effort to all those because I'm just one person. There's no way I could.
Mhm.
But
All of his clients are very excited to hear that.
well, I will say this:
I
I
phone
only
in
have
most
like
of them.
I only have like 1 or 2 of those are actual clients. The rest are for me. And the reason why I do that is because, no offense to any clients, it's my least favorite thing to do is freelance stuff. But I do it because it helps pay my
Great
bills, and
business model.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, I do it
No, I
also
totally
because
understand what you're saying.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's also a good way to like serve other people and use your gifts in
Yeah.
that way. But the personal projects are really what feeds my creativity, so that when I do something for a client, I can come to the table with fresh ideas and good energy. If all I did was freelance, I would die. So yeah, so that's one thing. And I try to do different types of projects. So like I'm doing a comic book project, I'm doing a mural that I'm doing for myself. I do abstract like diagram art, which involves some philosophy. I do some digital painting and stuff like that. So every project is a little bit of a different approach to it. So that keeps things fresh. I think for me, the biggest thing that I struggle with is laziness, which sounds probably a little bit counterintuitive since I'm like, well, I've got like 6 or 7 projects going all the time. But there's a lot of times where I struggle with actually just sitting down and creating. I have a lot of times like I'll just come up with excuses of other things to do. Or I'll say, I'll go play PlayStation for a bit or hang out with my kids or whatever, and then I'll go create. And I tend to do that a lot, and then things get pushed back on the back burner. But anyhow, back to the original question. The other thing I do is like I like to go on walks. That really helps me like sort through my thoughts, let my brain run a little bit too.
Do a little cocaine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go out in the
sometimes.
woods and do some
Go
drugs.
out in the woods, eat some mushrooms, and go off somewhere. No, no.
Well, speaking of which,
walking is just-
Brian K. Morris has he says he feeds his creativity with raw meat laced with psilocybin. It doesn't get much done, but at least it's happy. There you go.
nice. Yeah. So like, so those are the main things. Just keeping several projects going at the same time, and then like going for walks, thinking about other things, reading things outside my genre. I think is really helpful, just because it helps you approach things from ways that you wouldn't have expected or thought of before. And that that's I talked about this before, but like that's the approach I take with my comic book. Like I'm trying to incorporate different forms of literature in that, and I think it keeps the story fresh and approach to creativity fresh. So
yeah. I know. For me, right now, I'm reading a book called the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and
Nice.
it
Neato.
is it's actually really good. Jeremy, I think they're gonna make it into a TV show soon, so you'll be able to experience it. But because Jeremy can't read, it's sad. And
Whenever there's subtitles, I'm just like, I'm just excited to be here.
But the like what I'm finding about reading that is because it's I mean it has some horror aspect obviously from the title, but a lot of the book is really helping, like just reading it and digesting it is helping me write dialogue, like what people would just naturally say to each other in their own tones and everything. It's helping me approach dialogue from a completely different place, because like my writing style, especially with like Memoirs of an Angel, it's very kind of, it's just really, I don't know, deep in lore, and so a lot of times it's not dialogue driven, and there are moments that are, but most of it is kind of a narrative. It's more story driven than it has been character driven up to this point, and that is about to change.
Thank
And
goodness.
so I know,
I'm joking.
but no, like it. So this is kind of an exercise in just learning how to approach dialogue from a different perspective that isn't fantasy. It's just normal ladies, getting together for a book club and chatting about their books and making jokes and what their life is like, and it's a really
That's
cool experiment. So yeah, I think exploring outside of your genre to help pull in some of those skills is a huge thing to do.
Yeah. I feel like as comic book creators too, and this is where Jeremy would definitely relate. It's like watching movies is really helpful, because when you watch a movie, like it's a visual storytelling format, So like there's a lot of times when if I'm doing thumbnails or whatever, trying to figure out how to lay out a page, a lot of times in my mind, I'm thinking about it like a movie, like camera angles and like how things are communicated and ways that you can do it, stuff like that. Like that's the advantage of like just being a comic book creator. You're kind of forced to expose yourself to different genres anyways, just because it's such a unique story, it's way of telling a story, So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, Rick says most of my writing gets planned out while I'm driving. Certain songs will spark something and I'll run with it. Slipknot was quite helpful for forming Marvin's Night Out. Rock on. Carl says,
hey, just real quick with that, like I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, but I always heard like Einstein had said some of his greatest ideas came in the shower. I don't know if that's true, if he really said that, but I've heard that quote.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that, and that's why I mentioned going for a walk, and like I think it's interesting he just mentioned about going for a drive, is that when you're doing something else, that your mind does not have to that your mind doesn't have to be fully engaged. Like you don't have to think about driving. I mean, you do kind of, but you don't have to. It's so automatic. You don't have to think about walking.
Just get in the back
You know-
seat, put a center
Shut
block
up.
on the gas pedal.
Oh my gosh, shut up. You know what I'm saying? Like where your mind is not like you don't have to intensely focus on that activity, and
Yeah.
so it lets the rest of your mind kind of like that, like roam about and be creative and free because it's
Yeah.
not, it's different if you sit down and you're like, okay, I've got to write this thing. That's a lot of times where the creative block comes in because you're forced to like, okay, I've got to come up with ideas. Your mind is not able to just freely play. It's like it's forced to be focused. Whereas if you do something like driving or walking, you have the ability, your mind has the ability to roam and do other
Yeah.
things.
I think
No,
that
I
happened
mean-
a lot in the Sherlock series, the one on the BBC. Benedict Cumberbatch played Sherlock Holmes, and he did all kinds of really strange, off the wall things that would get him out of his comfort zone in order for him to think about something from a different perspective. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of credit. I don't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know. Like for me, the shower. I have written most of my books in the shower. I just the majority of all my ideas, all my notes, all my, the dialogue between characters. It all comes from I think when I just get in the shower, it's a place of relaxation, and my mind just kind of chills out. And like you said, it just creates a space where I can be more creative, and zone out a little bit. So yeah, for sure. Carl Witzman says we recommended that last night on Michaela's show. Switch projects when you hit a snag with one. Yeah, it's really helpful. I mean, I too have like 3 or 4 projects that I'm actively working on, and then if I ever get to a place where I have a new idea, I run with that. That has kind of helped me map out like the next 15 or 20 years of stories for me. Like I've just come up with these crazy ideas, and if I can't plug it into what I'm working on currently, I'm just like, no, this is its own thing. And then I'll just spend some time writing about that in my notes. And it's a great creative exercise. And it also creates more stories. Dan Hollifield, what's up, man? When my wife takes a shower, I get all kinds of none of them about writing. That's funny. Rick Bradley says, where did you get all the waterproof laptop to write all your stuff in the shower, Brian? They sell it on a website called Newegg. Just call them and ask for the waterproof laptop. They'll help you out.
Nice.
Dan, my Woodstock dreams, a very cool shower seat. All right. Yeah. So I've kind of touched on it already, but how I feed my creativity is taking a break, and like I said, ingest some stuff, consume some some movies, some books, some comics, and I don't do it with the goal of breaking a block or being inspired. I just do it because this is what I love interacting with, and that will always inspire me. So third question, we made it past the question on the show. Awesome.
Good job,
We're
guys.
already, yeah, sweet. And actually we kind of hit 2 questions at once because we've talked about the blocking,
Yes.
or writer's block, creative block, and what inspires us. So, Chad, you start us off this time. Give us a practical overview of your schedule in terms of creativity. When do you create? And are you intentional with your time or money, or money, or more freely create when it strikes you?
It's a little bit of both. I I work from home and I have 4 kids, and my wife works a lot, so I'm kind of in charge of watching them. And 2 of them are autistic, and so I work with them as far as um, like life skills and things like that. So I have to kind of work around their schedule a little bit, especially when they're in school. So I have to get up early to get them to school. And then after that, usually in the morning, I try to do a little bit. I'm not really a morning person. I mean, I don't mind getting up early, but I usually my best time to be creative is like late at night after everyone's
Mhm.
asleep, the house is quiet, there's no one going to be texting me or anything like that. Like that's really the best time for me because I usually in the day I struggle mostly with procrastination, and laziness. Like I just know, oh, I've got to do this stuff, but I don't really want to because I'm still tired because I stayed up late last night. So it's like this revolving cycle for me. But I try to ideally like I have my written down like hours and when I need to be creative. But as you guys probably feel the same way. Like it's hard to just turn on the creative switch. It's hard to just be
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to be creative now. So like
Mhm.
sometimes you have to force yourself. Like for me, usually between 10 and 2 is a chunk of time that I have to use. And if I don't, then I've lost that time. And it's hard to gain that back at night just because I'm taking care of my kids and stuff. Um, but yeah, for me, it's a mixture of being intentional, and then it's also a mixture of like, oh man, this is a really great idea, and you just kind of play with that, and then rearrange other things if you have to.
Mhm.
But like I said, usually late at night is the best time for me. So
Yeah, what about you, Jeremy?
I'm the same way. I can't tell you how many times that I'm either still up at 3 in the morning and have an idea for something that I want to create or do, or wake up from like a dream or something like that, and
mm,
some clicking of like two different things, it makes that connection in your head, and you're just like, oh, that's how you can do it, and
Mhm.
then find. I've got like a bunch of people that I follow on YouTube and things like that, where I know if I need the answer to a specific question, I can go to one of those channels and find the answer to it. But yeah, nighttime for sure.
Hmm.
Um,
yeah.
I do like maybe 20% of the work when it's light outside.
Mm.
Most of the time,
Since
it's like meeting with other people during the daytime.
yeah,
Yeah.
since you're working mostly freelance, like do you schedule out day to day like what you're going to work on, or is it just mostly what you want to work on? Like you're like, I know I have to do this project, but this one I'm really enjoying, so I'm going to work on this one now. Or like, do you have to force yourself, or how do you deal with all that?
So I I don't schedule. I think it's so silly to put yourself in the position where you're putting on your calendar like creative time. You know what I mean? I think that if, as soon as you say, let's be creative right now, you've already created a box where this has to fit inside.
Mhm.
So the things that I schedule are only like work things.
Mhm.
And the creative part of it, most of that has been done beforehand. Like that's what those late nights are for, is that's the creative part. And then the day is, okay, well, take these 6 elements and do the grunt work to kind of make this vision happen.
Mhm.
That's really how I handle it. But yeah, I used to try to do that, like it, it just never ends up working out. It ends up being like, you put like an hour or whatever, something like that, something arbitrary, and then I end up like blinking and the whole day is gone and I've done absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
So
totally
yeah.
experienced that.
Yeah.
And this is for both of you guys. Like, do you have process when you know you're going to sit down, you're going to work on a project? Do you have a kind of a thing you do to warm up, or do you just like get right to it, or like how do you approach it?
For me, it depends. I know sometimes I do a warm up piece just to kind of get things going, but a lot of times I just jump right in. And a lot of the times I'll incorporate my warm up stage into plotting a new page. So like, because that my plotting a page is always rough. My first layer is always just basic rough shapes and just kind of really working out what the page looks like. And a lot of times I get my warm up out of that.
Yeah.
But the way that my mind works, I can just like almost push pause in the middle of if I like have to go to bed or something in the middle of the page. Then I'll just push pause, go to bed, wake up, and be right back in that mindset in the morning.
That's nightmare fuel for me. Like I can't even figure that out. Like me, if I don't stop until I finish it, and that's not. I'm not saying that's a good thing. That's not.
Oh, I mean, everybody works differently. Yeah, like for me, like I try to go as long as I can.
Straight on something.
Yeah,
it's just
like I used to do that, and then I really, when I did the first trade of Memoirs of an Angel, I did essentially 4 issues because I had to redo the first 3 issues that were in black and white. I did the first 4 issues in a 6-month time frame, and that was on top of a full-time job, and I would do that. I would just stay up, and sometimes I'd pull all-nighters drawing, and it was awful. It became a point where I hated it. I did not want to come back to the drawing table. I didn't want to do it anymore. And I realized it was just because I wasn't getting enough rest for me. Like I and everybody's body works different. Like some people thrive, on the pressure, and they can go long periods of time. And I'm just not that type of person. So
I can do it occasionally. I can't string together like 4 or 5 of those, in a month or something like that.
But, no. But like for me, I totally, I hit a point, like if I start to get sleepy, I will push through it as much as I can. But if I am tired, it shows in my artwork. And so I if I start to get tired, I try to utilize my time as much as possible. And for me, like I have a full-time job, and outside of doing all the comic stuff, it's funny. I was talking to somebody today, and I was telling them just like kind of what my schedule looks like and all the different projects I'm working on. And they looked at me and they were like, "And you have a full-time day job as well?" I was like, "Yes, I do." I apparently do not like social life at all. But this is my social life. So there you go.
There you go.
But I wake up in the morning, I go to work. But throughout the day, thankfully, I have the freedom to, if I get, an idea, I can write it down at work. I can, log on to my Google Docs and, type away for a minute or two, take a quick break from what I'm doing and explore this idea or jot it down in the ongoing notes that I have for whatever project that's already established. So I kind of am constantly living in that creative flow. It's just, if it comes to me, no matter where I am, what I'm doing, I jump into it. And
that episode of I Love Lucy where they've got the conveyor belt and they're having to like build it. That's my brain. If I stop, it just keeps going, and I have absolutely no idea. Like I've tried before stopping a project, like a video, and I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I don't understand any of this. What happened here? Like it's totally foreign to me. So that's why I just have to stay with it until it's done.
Yeah. See, I can't do that because it just it kills me. But like I'll come home from work, I'll jump into comic stuff, comic mode, doing the shows like immediately. And then sometimes, hey, I do that enough that if I want to rest, if I want to take a night off, I do it. Because I mean, there's one on one side, you shouldn't just do that whenever you want to, because sometimes you have to, make yourself go work. There has to be some self-discipline there for sure. But don't work yourself to death, because then stress kills creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are, just forcing yourself to work all the time on your books and everything, like, you need that time to rest, to then go back and find inspiration and, go back to your, movie, rabbit holes and all these things.
Yeah.
Like, you need
Yeah.
time to do that, and you can't do that if you're making yourself be creative.
Yeah.
Because when you make yourself be creative, you're not actually being creative.
Yeah.
So
I've also found that if you if you force yourself to be creative, like for me personally, if I'm like forcing myself because I have to do something or I have one or whatever, like I tend to be not very productive because I'll just sit there and I'll draw a little bit and I'm like, oh, I hate doing this. And I'll like watch a YouTube video and then like think about something else. And I find myself like, oh, I just sat here for like an hour and didn't do hardly anything, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's where I for me personally, like if I'm at a place in a project that I'm really not liking because maybe it's a very thing I'm trying to draw and I can't figure it out, or I'm just not enjoying it. Sometimes those times I will intentionally like I'll work on this for 15 minutes and then go do something else and then come
yeah,
back to it later because I know, or if I'm tired, like I when Brian you were saying like you get to that point where you're tired and you kind of work through it. There have been times where I've literally like started falling asleep as I'm drawing and I'll just keep like doing that, and I realize I'm not getting any drawing done. Like I've spent the last half hour trying to keep
yeah,
myself awake, and at that point, I'm like, I'll just go to bed. Who cares?
yeah.
I'll just do it later. But the other thing I was going to say, that's the beautiful thing about being an indie creator is, and we talked about this before. There's such an allure to like work for the big two for Marvel and DC, but if you work for them, like you are chained to that project, like 10, 12 hours a day. Like you don't have
And
the
production
option.
deadlines and yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have the option that we do where like basically and I know the allure to that is like to have that on your resume is amazing to say I worked for DC or Marvel.
Mhm.
Or you go to a convention and people know who you are. There's a bit of fame that gets tied to that. But it's not worth it. Like I I remember seeing a post by oh dang it! I can't remember. Every time I tell this, I've told this before, and I forgot his name before. The guy that did,
Classic Chad.
shut up. The guy that worked with, Greg Capullo.
Yeah,
He had a post where he just talked about like going like I want to say like 2 months without a day off, and it was like 12-hour days. And I'm
yeah,
like, that sounds horrible. Like, what? Why is that even like an attract? Like, who wants that? Like,
yeah,
yeah, everyone knows your name, but what price did you pay for that? Like, who
yeah.
cares?
I
Like,
got to draw Batman though.
yeah, so what? Yeah, you and like 50 other people, and your name's eventually going to be forgotten anyways. Like, it's so dumb. Like, so, anyways, that's why I love the advantage of being an indie creator is like you can take those breaks and do things that are life
Mhm.
giving
Yeah,
rather than being forced into this. And like you said, you need some self discipline, but
yeah.
man, you need
Well, like,
rest
that's
too.
why I'm not as hard on like image books that take sabbaticals. They take
Yeah,
breaks.
who
With
cares? Like,
Saga being the huge exception because it's been like 4 years and that's ridiculous.
oh,
Um,
whatever. It's good. It's good
uh,
though. Like, but
well, they
and
were.
you.
I mean, they were working on other things too. So
That's
they were
true.
supposed
And
to come back in 2020, and then the pencils down stuff really screwed them up.
yes, but even like you give me a hard time because it takes me years between books. But for me, that is actually an advantage because every time a book comes out, you can build a new and more expansive uh, fan base. Like
Mhm.
you get new people introduced to a book, and really at the end of the day, it's just a comic book. Like seriously, I mean, like same with Saga. Like it's just a comic book. So like if it takes a couple years for the story to finish, it takes a couple years. Who cares? And I
Mhm.
know I know people are gonna in the comments give me a hard time about that, but at the end of the day, it's like whatever. It'll be fine. You guys will be
Yeah,
fine.
I mean, and I get what you're saying, and I do agree with it. I think on one hand, though, like I don't know. For me, I look at Memoirs of an Angel, which is the story that means the most to me. For me, it's not just a comic book. Like for me, that is what I really want to share with everybody. And so like, yeah, on one hand, like it is just a comic book. Like it's, there isn't, but I guess you could say the same thing, like, like the Chronicles of Narnia is just a book series. And I'm not comparing memoirs with that, but it's just like,
Right.
like there are works out there that really just make a huge difference in people's lives, be it hundreds, thousands, or dozens, and so for me, like my constant drive whenever I'm making Memoirs of the Nebulizer or now Princess Warriors, like my drive is I don't want these to just be comics. And I'm not no, that's not what you're saying, Chad.
Yeah.
But like for me, like I want these stories to to be something to somebody, even if it's just me and a handful of people.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say I think we're on the same page in the sense that I don't mean to be flippant, like it's just a comic book. I think what I'm trying to say is like, things that are done at a high level of quality, like it's going to be very difficult to pull those off quickly. Like it's going to take a while. And so I think it's okay for those to take a while. I think we grow up we're in a culture where we just expect things to happen so quickly that the minute there's a delay on a story, we get, little, I think more upset than is really warranted by
Oh, no,
what we're
that is
dealing with.
absolutely
You know what I
true.
mean?
Yeah,
That's
we
what
are
I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, we are a instant gratification culture.
Yeah.
And when we don't have it right here, right now, when we want it to be. And that's honestly why I really dig the format that we're finally going back to of not dropping every episode of a TV show all at once.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy, 1 to 3 episodes at a time. Because what that does is it builds anticipation. It actually builds community around your project more than the drop it all and binge it right now. And it also prevents spoilers. That is huge. Like right now, like on Netflix, like with The Witcher season 2, thankfully I didn't get spoiled. But I easily could have, because everything was dropped all at once, which I do like. Like, I'm not knocking the binge process. Like, there are shows I've intentionally waited until they were all done so that I could then go back and watch them all. But there is something to that. Drop this episode this week. It always comes out on a Wednesday. Like that kind of stuff. Like, I like that. I really do. And I think, honestly, I do think a lot of it has to do with growing up with, classic network television, but also comics. Like most, like, like a lot of the comics that I followed growing up and even now, they don't all come out in trade paperback immediately. It's, getting the individual floppies that lead to the trade paperback or the graphic novel. And I like that format. I really do. I think, like I said, I just think it builds anticipation, it builds excitement, and it really does like build community. Like people gather around this kind of stuff.
I'm with Jeremy on this one. I'd rather wait 4 or 5 years for them to make all the episodes and come out with the whole thing and just
gross.
Just like 2028, they're like, here's Saul's 6 seasons of the show.
No.
Yes, I would tell. And wait a minute. You can still build community that way because people can sit down and watch it all together, or read it all together. Like your way's not better, Brian.
My way's so much better.
It's just a way.
It's a better way. You're right. No, I think there are good and bad things with both. I mean, especially with like TV shows and even comics. Like there are certain stories that I do prefer all at once. And then there are certain stories I do I do prefer, in episode bites, because I think they just work better that way. Perfect example, like especially a serialized show like what's that god awful show on CBS? NCIS. That show would not work well all dropped at once, because it's meant to be a story of the week kind of format. And I think those types of stories, I think they need to have, like, this is this week's story, this is next week's story, and then all of these, up to the 10 episodes, it all builds up to this one thing. And I prefer that in a shorter span than the network television, 22 to 24 episodes, because that's just ridiculously drawn out. But I don't know. I think both have good things and bad things attached to both of them for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
So, all right, guys. Well, to wrap it up, last question, Jeremy. This will go to you. How important is creativity to you generally and specifically?
What does that even mean?
I don't know, Chad. Explain yourself.
Well,
like, I don't understand the generally and specifically thing. Like, so how important is creativity? It's everything. I would have just given up by now if there wasn't something for me to do, like some way for me to get things in my head outside of my head. I would just be miserable.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I mean by I don't understand generally or specifically.
Okay. I think what I meant with that question, like the way you just answered it, is in general, it is very important
It's
to you
everything.
because it's everything.
Yeah.
And then specifically would be, well, you arrange your whole your daily schedule around it. Like there are specific decisions that you're making every day.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think specifically it's important to me, and you can see that in the way that I have everything that I like doing down in my basement.
That was really creepy sounding too.
But I've got my Apple TV and Switch and laptop and lights and cameras, so that at a moment's notice I can just like turn around and do something else creative. Like I've got guitars and I've got a refrigerator for food that I like to eat creatively.
How does that work? I think I'll eat spaghetti with my toes this time. Just get creative.
You just get creative with it.
That's weird. I don't like that conversation. Let's jump into comments really quick before we go on to Chad. Carl says, my first professional writing was in nonfiction, so I could schedule that time. No need for high power creativity. I got used to that. This novel writing. Carl then says, I have to form mental storyboards and then write down the scenes from there. Yep, that's how I write too, man. John Celestri, what's up, Jay Selly? He says, even when I was working for a salary, I realized that I couldn't be creative for more than 6 intensive hours a day. I'm still that way today. Honestly, a lot of people are like that. After 6 hours, a lot of people check out. That's why in other countries, a lot of work days are only 6 hours, because they realize that 2 of those hours, 2 of an 8-hour day, people are just zoning out. Luna, Carl sings your praises. Oh, you're right behind me. Hi, baby. This is where Luna sits. Luna thanks you for her chair, Jeremy.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Just so you know, that's where she lives now half the time. And Brian K. Morris says, creativity with food, with food eating. I'm horrified and enticed at the same time.
Weird. I want to see those pictures in the comments, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, you're first, buddy.
Creative food eating.
Chad, so how important is creativity to you generally and specifically?
I don't even understand this question. Who came up with
you
these
wrote
questions?
it.
This is
you
ridiculous.
Wrote the question.
Well, generally, it is everything to me. It's how I identify. It's like basically drives everything I do in my life. I mean, for me, like I know there were many years, and we talked a little bit about this, but like, you know, I have a religious background, went to seminary, was in ministry, and that kind of thing, and it really messed with me because creativity was so important up on that level with how I think about religion and philosophy. Like, when I think about who I am and what I do and my identity as a person and that kind of thing, like, um, it really is everything when I think about creativity and how I process life. Like, it really goes through that filter of being a creative person, um, which then filters into the specifics because that's kind of my job as part-time job for now, doing freelance. And then also just for me personally, for my own mental well-being, I have to create. If I don't, I go crazy. And I live on that. I am a sociopath, so I kind of live on that cusp of the book of Ecclesiastes, where I just life really doesn't have a whole lot of like meaning in and of itself, and so creativity really helps me. I mean, that's why I need religion and philosophy, because I'll go crazy. But then also the creativity aspect of it really helps me with like understanding life and who I am and what I do with my life. So my specific practical decisions also get filtered through that. Um, Everything from how I arrange my day to my job and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's a huge thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of you guys have pretty much summed up how I feel about it as well. But to add to it, I would even say, like, generally, I actually like how you worded this, Chad, because generally, um, I think everyone lives creatively, um, a certain way. Not
Mm.
everybody makes comics, right? But like
Yeah.
I've said this before, like Robin is creative in how she does her accounting. Creativity just
Yeah.
means doing things a different way, that is unique and says something about um, the thing that you're doing. You can creatively do dishes. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily know what that looks like, but that's because I'm not creative in doing the dishes. But like you can
Yeah.
live
Power washer,
your life. Yeah, exactly.
pressure
You
washer.
can get
Yeah.
creative in anything that you do. And then specifically how you do it is the things that you really hone your creative skills on. And
You
I
know,
think that
it's I'm gonna cut you off here. You're
you
welcome.
have interrupted me. Yes.
Yes, I enjoy every minute of it. Not to go on like a big rabbit trail, but it's interesting what you just said about how everyone is creative. And you were just saying about I forgot how you define creativity, but I was just thinking a lot like when you said, I don't know how you could be creative as a dishwasher. Well, I've washed dishes before professionally.
Yeah.
And there is a creativity in that sense gets down to problem solving. And the more I
Yeah.
thought about it, it's like really that is what a definition of creativity is, because you're constantly solving problems, or you're constantly, yeah, you're finding solutions to things. Like you have a
Hmm.
blank canvas or page, or you're trying to tell a story, excuse me, and you're like, the problem is, how do I tell that story, and how do I
Yeah.
do it in a way that communicates well? It'd be an interesting, and we don't have time for it right now, but it'd be an interesting discussion to define what does creativity mean, what is it, and how do you do it? Because like, to your point, it doesn't matter. Like we're talking about food. I've worked in restaurants, and
Yeah.
if I didn't do what I'm doing right now, I would love to go back to school and been a professional chef, like a real deal chef, and go to like a high dollar restaurant where like it is like the way that they present food and what they do with food is incredible. Like you would never have thought about ways
Hmm.
they cook food. So anyways, that I just had to cut you off to make that
No,
point.
no. I mean, really, it just kind of adds to what I was saying. I mean,
It's actually a lot more important than what you were saying.
yeah.
Is
Well,
really
Yeah.
what
screw
I'm
you
trying
too.
to say.
So it was just so you know, it was a terrible question that nobody understood. So,
It's
It's
true.
true.
No,
agree.
but I do like how it was worded, because there are general ways you can be creative and then specific ways. Like, like you said, any kind of problem solving, like, oh, there's a traffic jam up ahead. I'm going to get creative and take a bunch of back roads and find a more creative way to get wherever I'm going. That's a general way to be creative, but then I make comics. That's very specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think I like the idea of exploring more about what creativity is, and I think that would be a good topic to cover down the road with a guest outside of the normal dingoes on the show. I think that would be a wonderful topic to cover.
Yep.
So, to close it all out, let's jump back into the comments really quick. We have Donna. Oh, Aunt Donna says hi, and she wants me to kiss you. So come
Hi,
here.
kitty.
Come here. Oh no, she runs away. Oh no, come back. I kiss you. Yes. Mwah.
Yeah.
No, she lets me do whatever I want. But anyway, any closing thoughts, guys? Chad, you wrote
you're
this
supposed to
outline.
have.
Is there anything that
Yeah,
you
no.
wanted to?
You were
What?
supposed to come up with a closing question, and you even said, "I'm going to come up with one in the next 30 seconds." I'm a little disappointed in you right now.
I came up with an icebreaker in 30 seconds.
That is good. I will give you a
That's
point
what
for
I
that.
said.
Okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? So shut your mouth. Well, okay, I did the first one. You close us out. What are your closing remarks, Chad? What do you have for us?
Oh gosh, put me on the spot. I don't know.
Yes.
No, I mean, I think our last little discussion there was really good. It makes me continually think, even as we're sitting here, like, how do you define creativity? And it's true that everyone uses it on some level, and it really redefines what you think about, like, artists too, because it's like artists aren't the only ones that are creative. Like you said, like with your wife doing accounting and whatever field you're in, it requires a certain way of thinking that solves problems in ways that maybe other people haven't thought about. And that is a beautiful thing about creativity and how it functions in our life.
And I think a lot of the times the things that we think of as super creative are just ways that there was a problem and you had to like work around it. You think of like early special effects and and practical effects. Like the whole reason practical effects exist is because that was the only way to do it until computers came along. You know what I mean? Like, so the problem was, I want to tell this big grand story with spaceships and aliens and things like that. Like, well, how do I do that if I don't have any alien actors to star in my movie? So
yeah. I do actually have a closing helpful tool for everybody. Yeah, that's right. No, do either of you guys have like a, I don't know, like a book that you like, or I know, Jeremy, you don't like books, but like something like on creativity that somebody can go to and kind of read or watch, that comes to mind. Just to give you guys a second to think, I have a really awesome book that I've talked about before, and I'm going to put the link in the comments section. And it's a book called Adorning the Dark, by a guy named Andrew Peterson. And he is actually a singer-songwriter, but is also now an author. He's written really impressive and fun children's book series. But he also wrote this book about just the creative process. It's told from the Christian worldview, but there are a lot of things in this that even if you're not in that circle, you definitely will relate to as a creative person. He also focuses his on music, and that's not my thing. Jeremy, I thought of you when I read this. If you should attempt to read this book if you want, because I really think it'll capture kind of your imagination.
Okay.
but it's told because he's a musician, so it's really told through that lens. But as a comic creator, I really related to a lot of things that he said in this book. So the premise is it's all about using your creativity to go and essentially light up the darkness in this world. That we as people who are creating content and creating stories and songs, it's our job, it's our responsibility, because we have these gifts and these talents, to go out there and inspire other people, and to leave our mark, to create something that was not there before. And it's really inspiring. I love it. I'm about to start reading it again. I finished it last year. And it's that good. So I can highly recommend that as well. You guys have anything or nothing?
So for me, I don't have a whole lot, just because like reading and learning about creativity is almost as unattainable as scheduling it, if that makes sense. But this is actually a book. I know that you're going to be like blown away by this. Yeah. It's one of the few books that I've read start to finish. But it's Stephen King's On Writing.
I love that book. That was gonna be. I have it right here on my shelf.
Yeah,
right here, folks. This is what it looks like.
It was such a unique, like, behind the scenes look through stories from his life, and I thought that was cool. It made me think about, like, in my life, all of the opportunities that may have been like close in orbit that I just never paid attention to. That now I kind of see opportunities for creativity like more often, because I was listening to all of the opportunities that he took advantage of in his early life to develop his creative skill.
Yeah.
So nice. Yeah, there's a book.
That's a good one.
That's a great book too. That is a great book. A good one. Chad,
I don't really. No, I don't actually, because I have a couple books here by my desk about creativity and the gift of art and those kind of things, but none of them that I'm like, oh man, that really like influenced me or blew me away more than, like, I shared this one before, is a T.S. Eliot book. Like, I love reading this book. I haven't read through all of it, but I've read several of his poems several times, just because of the way it transports me to a different world. Another book that has nothing to do with creativity, but it's something I read a lot, From Eden to New Jerusalem. It's a Bible book, so if you're not into that, then I totally understand. But for me, it's like, it's a real short book, and it just like ties together a bunch of themes in the Bible, and it helps my imagination. Like, it just helps me think about beyond my normal everyday life that I live, and kind of transports me into another world. So for me, those kind of books are the most helpful when it comes to actual, like, creating things and inspiring me as a creator. So
yeah, cool, guys. Well,
cool,
folks, I think that's it for tonight. Thank you all for stopping by. Next week, Chad, do we know what we're doing next week yet, or are we gonna announce that?
Yes, we can. I mean, we can announce it now. We're talking about character building. We're talking about character building and how we develop the characters in our stories. And yes, storytelling, it ties in a lot with worldview and that discussion that we've had in the past.
Yeah, sweet. All right, well, we're looking forward to that. I know I am. I think that's going to be a really cool topic. And thank you guys for showing up in the comments. It was a great night, and Carl and Donna both agree. And you know what, Chad, I'll give it to you. Well planned. It was a very good outline, sir. You did a great job. And thank you guys for being a part of the show. I'm very humbled and thankful that both of you guys are my friends, and just really glad that we get to do this every week. Now, really quick, before we head out, each of you tell us how wonderful you are and where we can find your work. Jeremy, start us off.
Yeah. So you can find me and my work
In my basement.
down in my basement. Yeah, if you don't find what you're looking for there, you can go to my website, jeremywoodring.com. I work with creative people all the time, helping them to tell their story better, or for the digital world. Yeah, so great. End of advertisement.
Fantastic. That was polished. I love it. Chad.
Well, I don't live in my basement, but I do live in my office. And as you can see, my amazing wall behind me of artwork. And you could just come in here and just look at all my stuff if you want. No, just kidding. I am the creator of The Silence, and number 1 and 2 are now out. And I'm very happy about number 2. Oh, this is number 2 here. Just picked that up this week, and very excited to get that in people's hands. And I'm also working on a few other projects that you will learn about here soon. So, yeah.
Next time you drive to Alabama, let me come with you.
Okay. I could totally do that. Yeah,
All right.
Absolutely.
Road trip. I'm Brian
Road trip.
Rodman. I am the author illustrator of Memoirs of an Angel, the dark fantasy. It's like Lord of the Rings meets The Exorcist. Also, author and illustrator of The Nebulizer. It's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meets Mad Max. It's a lot of fun. Also, there's a lot of asthma in this, and it's hilarious and fun and super filled with monster guts. You can also find me on a show that we do every Thursday night on the Rising Tide Broadcast Network called Comic Book Spectrum. I am on there with this fellow right here. Thank you very much, Brian. Also with Clyde Hall and the Eric Hawkins. We talk about our weekly reads of our comic books, and we talk about nerdy stuff, kind of like this show. More focused on comics necessarily, but yeah, it's a great show. We will be doing it Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and hope to see you there. Other than that, find me at brianrodman.com. All my social media stuff is up top on the homepage, and you can go stalk me that way. So without further ado, thank you all once again for being here. Remember to hit like, share, and hit that bell to get notified when we have a new episode. And as always, have fun, be safe, and don't do drugs. But if you do, call Chad, because he loves it when you do drugs.
In the woods.
In the woods.
That's right.
Oh, thank you guys so much, and have a great week. We'll see you next time when we talk about character building. Peace.
Yeah.